Okay, so let's imagine that you're a next gen leader of some age, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. It's a myth to think that only people in their 20s are next gen leaders. I'm going to give you 5 points. In other words, these are things to consider doing. And I invite you to just grab a pen or jot some of these down. You can obviously look at this video again and again, but uh, these are not opinions. These are based on Doug's consulting expertise over decades and also uh, some of my research. So here you go. Number one, you need to find similar other people. The reason why Tinder and social dating apps have exploded in use is in part because we're super selective and when in a millisecond we swipe right or left. It's a old part of our brain. We need to find people we like and trust. It's action. You do this in your neighborhood. You did this in college, maybe at a sorority or fraternity. You might have instantly found the people who validated you, and they said, "Ah, you're important," or "I share your desire to go watch a football game or a hockey game or whatever." When we find folks with similar values, they reinforce or validate the things that we know to be important. Please do the same. So that's number one. Find individuals, similar others, and then build your groups. Number two is an extension of that. Join or create some kind of a peer group or affinity group that keeps you going. Why? Because we're social animals. And as we look at the implementation of AI and opportunities to connect, there are going to be more and more opportunities that are impossible for AI and robots to replace. There are two skills, competencies that I want you to leverage here. One is curiosity. AI can never be curious. It can create content-based questions based on algorithms, but curiosity is uniquely human and always will be. And the second is humility. When I go and I meet somebody and I say, I don't know a thing about your industry, I don't know a thing about your life or your world, that humility engages me with that person. When I host peer groups, I'm the oldest guy in the room, and there's no reason for a gray-haired guy necessarily to be in that room, except that I create the fishbowl, the safe place where people can express whatever they need to express. So there's two kinds of affinity groups, B2C and B2B. B2C is like the next gen peer groups example, where we've got either virtual or virtual and direct sessions that meet regularly. And the reason is to create an opportunity for people to learn from other people that are similar in places in life and not competitors and not geographically restricted. So if you're in another place and able to connect with somebody who you already know and you've developed a friendship with, professional friendship, then you can ask them about various things. When we do our next gen peer group process, we have 12 sessions in 12 months. Two might be direct sessions and 10 might be virtual sessions. But in between everyone, we expect and schedule people to have twosies, a one-to-one conversation. And we expect people to be fully engaged in the process and reach out to the facilitators at any time. Why? Because affinity groups sharpen the saw. And if you don't have one, you can join one like I just described, or find a B2B model. You could be part of a professional association that exists already, from roofing contractors to wealth advisors to dental people to truck part people. It doesn't matter what the group is. But when you join that group, you're now hanging with other people and getting what's called social reinforcement. It helps you keep going. We all need it. And we need it beyond our families, our family of origin. How we define family is much more complicated conversation. But when you create that affinity group, then you get to select who's in the room. So number one, find similar other people. Number two, join a pure affinity group of some sort or create one. And number three is going to bother some of you. You need to expect compensation from the owners of your family enterprise. I've been around too many who have said, I don't even know the scope of my trust. I don't know when or if to expect to ever know what those terms are. Uh, Mom and dad maybe picked that person who was a golf buddy of theirs or an attorney friend of theirs, but I don't like and trust that person. So if you're taking care of yourself in any way, your parents paid for college. Somebody paid for college. The trust might have paid for college. The trust might have paid for that trip to wherever, whether it was Europe or the Caymans. It doesn't matter. The money's there. You should expect some compensation, some financial investment. Why? Because you're critically important. And your career requires clarity. Every next gen I've met struggles with this. Who's going to pay for the fill in the blank? Our own daughters are 30 and 29, and at the risk of sharing too much, I remember when they came back from school, and one of them said, "Daddy, tell me about our offshore accounts and the Bahamas." And I said, "Really? Tell me about them." And she said, "Well, all my buddies at prep school in Charlotte are a lot of them are NASCAR families, and they have offshore accounts." Well, okay. Does that mean we do, honey? No, not necessarily. So it led to some good conversations. Next gens often bite their tongues. Many of you are respectful in that way. And you've got all these cultural voices that encourage you to ask for help. Look at affinity groups. Look at mental health care in many employers now. Look at every family office that's evolving beyond the fiduciary financial stuff to how do we take care of our next gen needs, emotional and psychological needs. That's self-care. So number three, expect some compensation, ask for it, and state that it's a normal thing, and all the ways I just mentioned. So number one to review was find similar others, individuals. Number two was find a peer group or affinity group or create one. Number three is expect some kind of compensation so that it's not out of pocket. There's no reason why it should be. And number four is self-care, which has been a theme if you think about it. All of us have basic needs. Sleep is number one, and when we think about accidents and incidents and safety prevention, bad judgment, it's commonly because we're not taking care of our physical needs, from diet and exercise to sleep to whatever career aspirations you might have. My experience is that we exist to serve other people. Boom, that's Doug's experience. You may not share that belief. But if you believe that you're here to serve some greater purpose, whatever that might be, that implies that you can't do it alone and you need a personal advisory board or team. And this is not a grand thing necessarily. It's thinking about three or five or six people that you like and trust that you're going to ask for help occasionally. The way I do it is I did this just the other day. I met up with somebody I hadn't connected with for some time, I think 3 or 4 years pre-COVID. And we met at a golf course for lunch, which became a 2 hour event, during which I said, I like and trust you. I appreciate the work you've done in your own business and your personal work and your family work. Would you please be a personal advisor to me? I'd love to do the following. And you should maybe write this language down because it works. It's easy. Let's meet quarterly. I'll bring an agenda or a couple of questions, like any mentor-mentee relationship, and we'll stop at any time. This isn't an expectation of, we're around forever. But personal advisory boards catapult us. It forces us to be intentional about various goals and to realize, well, who's on my team and who's not. So let me give you some tips. Please select people who have the same or higher net worth. There's no sense necessarily choosing folks who are not likely to understand your financial situation in life. And it's aspirationally important to find folks who have higher net worth, who can inform you about various things you haven't thought about. Insurance is a classic example. Do we have insurance on the lake house or the jewelry or the artwork or travel? And if I choose to go to Peru alone, does that mean I'm at risk? And if I choose to put stuff on social media, stunning images of me wherever, what does that mean for my parents or the personal assets in that family home? These are examples of self-care that we don't often think about. And a personal advisory board is one way to be intentional about it. So that's number four. Practice self-care. It's a thing. And there's plenty of YouTube videos that can inform you. Lots of good research in the last 20 years in particular in psychology. And number five is adopt a framework that's useful, that's not based on Instagram and Facebook reposts. And I'm going to be a little bit uh, declarative here. We created this book. I wrote this book in part because of requests from next gen leaders who asked, what are the 50 things I need to do? Which is overwhelming, right? So we narrowed it down. This book describes the top 10 in five systems, and it's pretty straightforward: individual, or family, business, um, ownership, and then learning systems. These are five systems that describe how all of us evolve: the individual and the organization. That's the key question. IO psychology is industrial organizational, but it's also individual organizational. And it's how we raise our kids. It's how we parent our kids. It's how we parent our parents. How do I fit in with this family system? So when I think about the complexity there, I've learned that people need to know 10 simple things that will accelerate their development as individuals and their contributions. So here are two at the individual level. So here's the individual, here are the four other systems around it. One, state your thoughts and feelings on important topics, whatever's important to you. It does not mean blurt out. It does not mean it's okay for you to accuse grandma or cousin, whomever, of being a jerk for the following reasons. That's silly. Catharsis does not work. Self-regulation does work. And self-regulation is a skill that we can teach and develop over time. So number one, state your thoughts and feelings on important topics. Number two, assume a positive outcome or a positive attitude. Optimism is a thing. We learn optimism just as we learn pessimism. And there's plenty of opportunities to be pessimistic, but why do so? The research is really clear. Optimistic people live longer, have better and deeper relationships, are capable of serving more people over their lifetime than not, and are healthier. So if you're, for instance, thinking about any of those things, how do we become healthy, wealthy, and wise? You could adopt a positive attitude. There's bunches of structures for doing so. So to review, if you're a next gen leader or potential leader, you don't necessarily see yourself as a leader, here are five things you could do. One, find similar other people, individuals who encourage you and support you and keep you going. I'd be happy to be one of those people. You can schedule a one-to-one at any time. Number two, join a peer group of some sort, some affinity group. It could be with others who are, say, family business leaders. It could be part of an association that you choose to affiliate. Number three, expect financial support from others. This is not necessarily an out-of-pocket thing. I've never met a family system where somebody isn't willing to support somebody else's, a next gen's, a younger one's career growth. And I say that because I worked in prep schools for 10 years. I've been around all kinds of complex family discussions, boarding schools and day schools. I ran a nonprofit at a Quaker school in DC, Washington, DC, which was a summer camp program for 8 years. We grew at 900%, in part because parents will spend anything on their kids. Think about children's hospitals versus other hospitals. Well, you're important. And it doesn't matter if you're 40 or 50, you're still important. Somebody will pay for that investment, and they should, especially if you take it seriously. So please expect that kind of compensation. Number four, create a personal advisory board. It'll be organic, it'll evolve. Thank goodness it will. And you'll find the people that you need who have the skill set you lack right now, and they'll support you in some significant way. And last, adopt a framework that's evidence-based. I'd encourage you to use ours, the Success Playbook for Next Gen Family Business Leaders. It's inexpensive, but it's also a simple way to get started. The Next Gen peer group levels that you see on that page are meant to be inexpensive. so you could join a digital program and get your feet wet. Well, you see the three steps there. For most folks, they need some kind of ongoing support over 12 months, and that's why we created the peer groups. It could be that that's a perfect solution for you. And it could be that you prefer one-to-one consulting, or your family would prefer one-to-one consulting. That's what I've been doing for decades, and I love it. It could be that you want virtual only experiences over those 12 months. Subsequently, it'll be a lower cost. I think it's 6K on the website. If you want the direct and virtual 12K over 12 months, I encourage you to. There's so much more value accelerated when we meet directly for 24 or so hours. And um, we expect that everybody in that model is going to have, we schedule twosies, one-to-ones with each other. We expect that you will reach out to one another during that year, but also the rest of your lives, that will become a resource to you over time. And we expect that you'll reach out to the facilitators because we've got some pretty good stories and expertise that may be able to uh, help you in any way. I close every session with this question. What are you taking away from this video that you might do next? And I'm going to give you two steps. They're pretty simple. And you'll see them in a little button down below. One is schedule a one-to-one with me at any time. Number two, uh, join our email newsletter thing. And I think it comes out every 2 weeks. And it's stuff like this. It's value-based. It's a bunch of stories and contents that are useful, I think, to folks. The fact is, if you're feeling lonely or anxiety, like every next gen I've ever met, uh, it's up to you to do something. Take some action. Action always leads to learning. Happy to be a resource. Look forward to talking. Call anytime. Okay, so what are the next steps? There's really only three that I think of. One, schedule a call with me. Here's a link down below. Two, maybe you're interested in being included in some of the newsletters we send, I think every other week, so twice a month. These are value adds, content based, and our hope is that they help teach whatever skills and knowledge you might need. And the third is if you want to learn more about this particular interest, just click that third option and I'll share some stories and case studies. So let's get going.